Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Raymore City Council work session for Monday, March the 17th, 2025. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. This evening, I'll be facilitating most of the meeting as both the items on our agenda this evening are ones that I requested Mr. Feuerborn to put on for discussion. I'm actively involved with both of these items, and so I really wanted the council to get an update this evening from those who are in the trenches, so to speak, on both of these topics. And first up this evening is Ms. Lauren Palmer. She is with a group called EverStrive Solutions. Lauren has been contracted by the Parade of Hearts. Their executive director is Jen Nussbeck. She was going to present but could not be here this evening, and so Lauren was the lucky one to pick the short straw and be here with us this evening. But I did provide you with a hard copy also of the presentation that she is going to go through this evening to show you a little bit of different path that Parade of Hearts will be taking over the next couple of years as we begin to enjoy the effects of the FIFA World Cup coming to town, and how Parade of Hearts is going to partner with that activity as we move forward for the Kansas City metropolitan area, and how the city of Raymore can also take advantage of that as well. So, Lauren, thank you for being here this evening, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, it's great to be with you this evening. I don't think I drew the short straw. It's always a pleasure to get out and visit with governing bodies. I'm really excited for this opportunity to speak with you about how cities and counties can leverage your local tourism strategies through the Parade of Hearts in 2026. So the Mayor introduced me. I'm Lauren Palmer. My firm, EverStrive Solutions, we're a full-service public sector consulting firm engaged by Parade of Hearts. I recognize some of you from my past life. Previously, I served as Director of Local Government Services for MARC, the Regional Council, and did a lot of work in that capacity with a lot of regional initiatives, including Parade of Hearts, so was really lucky. Left MARC last summer and continuing to support Parade of Hearts in this capacity to continue with regional coordination. I've been involved in this concept that we're going to talk about tonight and feel very comfortable with this presentation, but as the Mayor mentioned, I am pinch hitting. The Executive Director of Parade of Hearts, Jen Nussbeck, would have loved to have been here tonight and sends her best with her regrets. She is part of a large Irish family, and today is very special to them, so she is home celebrating with her family, and I was pleased to get the opportunity to come visit with all of you. My caveat in telling you that is that I'm not on the board of directors of Parade of Hearts, and I'm not on their staff, so there may be questions that you have tonight that I'm not fully equipped to answer. And if that happens, I will take great notes and follow up with Jen, and we will make sure that we get your questions fully answered. We'll get that information back to the Mayor and your staff just as quickly as we can. All right, I want to start by giving you a little bit of background. The Kansas City Parade of Hearts, it's a public art initiative that started in 2021. It was conceived during the challenging times of COVID-19 and the pandemic, and it was really envisioned as a way to unite the communities, to celebrate the resiliency of our Heartland region, and to raise funds to support local nonprofits that were instrumental in responding to the COVID-19 crisis. And as you can see on the slide there, the project featured these 5-foot-tall heart sculptures that were designed by local artists and placed throughout the Kansas City region. And what was originally visioned as this one-time art event in 2022 quickly grew into one of the most recognizable public art events in the Kansas City region, with subsequent showcases in 2023 and 2024. This slide should look very familiar to you. In 2024, the city of Raymore hosted this piece titled The Epic Tale of the Ultra-Violent Warrior by artist Keisha Jordan to bring awareness to the autoimmune disease of lupus. Mayor Turnbow is pictured there with the artists, and of course he mentioned he's served on the Parade of Hearts Community Engagement Committee, has just been a tremendous champion for your city, for this project, for our entire region. So Mayor, I just wanted to recognize you and thank you for your leadership and support in this work. So the Parade of Hearts is officially on hiatus right now in 2025, preparing for the next iteration of this public arts phenomenon. So next year in 2026, The parade will be back to continue its mission to unite the Kansas City region through another magical, free public art experience featuring these one-of-a-kind sculptures created by local artists. As you know, the region is anticipating an unprecedented level of global tourism and attention in 2026. And the parade is a great opportunity to display to the world our Heartland region's example of unity and our common purpose of making our communities even stronger. Now, while the parade is officially on hiatus, it's not on vacation. A selection committee has been working very hard behind the scenes for months and recently announced the new sculpture design for the 2026 parade that you see there on the screen. This design will be on display throughout the greater Kansas City region from April through September of 2026. So the parade is now transitioning into that phase where they're doing a call for artists, and that process will be kicked off in June to select those many creative minds who will transform these blank sculptures into one-of-a-kind works of art. I personally cannot wait to see what artists do with this new design. I think it's really interesting, and it's got incredible potential for creativity and new ways for people to interact with the art pieces. So that brings me to the purpose of my visit this evening. As Parade of Hearts has been making its preparations for 2026, there is a recurring theme that is coming up from stakeholders, including many officials with cities and counties. And that theme is that there is a gap in our coordination of local tourism activities and the way that we promote our local tourism assets on a regional, national, and global scale. People are doing lots of interesting things, but there really isn't a strong mechanism in place for coordinating and sharing information and making sure that we are helping each other and not tripping all over each other. So Parade of Hearts is leveraging its resources to help fill that gap through a new program for municipalities that we are calling Legacy Project TC3. And that represents tourism, collaboration, communication, and coordination. Those are the three C's. Legacy Project reflects the potential for lasting regional impact beyond 2026, and I'll talk about that shortly. So some people have asked, why is Parade of Hearts launching TC3? Parade of Hearts is a 501c3 nonprofit agency that was created to celebrate and give back to the Kansas City heartland. It is part of the Parade of Hearts mission to amplify unity, economic impact, and collaboration. So the board of directors of Parade of Hearts really feels civic responsibility to help in this space since they've been hearing this issue from their stakeholders. And I know you all have some familiarity with the Parade of Hearts. It was always conceptualized as this framework to encourage people to get out and explore new communities and neighborhoods that maybe they don't interact with in their daily routines and activities. And so TC3 is about taking that concept to the next level. This is an opportunity that is open to city and county governments in our greater Kansas City region. So that, of course, includes Raymore and Cass County. Participating cities secure eligibility to promote businesses, tourism assets, and events within their corporate boundaries. And then participating counties may promote county-sponsored events or assets that are owned and maintained by the county, and they can also promote businesses and other tourism activities in their unincorporated areas. So you can see on the screen there are two primary components to TC3. First, each participant is invited to appoint a representative to the TC3 coordinating task force. This could be a member of your city staff, or you could delegate this role to a partner entity like a visitors bureau or a chamber of commerce. But the task force is really envisioned to be this central hub that's going to do three things: share information and coordinate tourism activities, advise on the development of a digital platform and how the specific community integrations will work, and then relay information back to their participating communities to make sure that we are ensuring maximum visibility and that we are reducing fragmented marketing efforts. The estimated time commitment for this task force is about 3 to 5 hours every month. The task force is going to start meeting in May of this year and will continue to meet through the end of the parade in September of 2026. And then the second component for participating communities is access to a web-based mobile platform that's designed to connect the Kansas City region and offer just a new unprecedented opportunity to centralize tourism activities and public event promotions. So by opting in, participating cities and counties receive exclusive access to collaboration opportunities, communication, toolkits, and promotional resources that are going to live within this digital platform. There are lots of websites and interesting promotional things throughout our region, but there is no other platform in the region that offers this level of integrated event activity and tourism promotion. So you can really think about this application like a trail of breadcrumbs. We know from data from prior parades that people will plan their leisure activities around interactions with these hearts, with the art sculptures. And the app will help us drive arts enthusiasts to nearby attractions through targeted promotions. For example, if you're in town to view the heart located in Raymore, you could go on the app and check out nearby businesses or events that are promoted that could be part of your trip to see the heart. Also, we want to target people that if they are going to South Kansas City or Grandview to visit hearts that are located there, we want to give them information and encourage them to keep coming and see what's available in Raymore and Cass County. So that's the general concept. The devil, of course, is in the details. So I don't personally have the technical expertise to explain how all of this functionally is going to work. Parade of Hearts has contracted with a really incredible development team that is working on taking the existing Parade of Hearts application and achieving this new vision. So this asset is still in design, and the members of the task force are going to be part of that design process and help influence all of the operational details. But at a high level, we do know that the app will include these basic elements. It will have automated data integration with existing digital calendars, so making API connections to try to minimize duplicate data entry. There will be an exclusive back-end communication portal that's going to help people on the task force and others share information on what they're planning, on their tourism activities and initiatives, on events. Again, just to avoid competing on dates and resources and helping support and cross-promote neighboring activities. It will have a custom analytics dashboard that will display user engagement metrics so you all can be aware of things like views and clicks and check-ins and know how the app is impacting activity in your community. It will be designed for both mobile and desktop uses. It will allow for real-time updates, reducing load times. It will have search functionality by city, county, and zip code, enabling hyper-localized discovery of events, businesses, and tourism assets. And then finally, really the key component is that interactive GIS mapping, so it will allow users to go check out the heart they want to see and then visualize points of interest and transportation routes and nearby attractions so they can plan their activities. Right, so the cost, participation in TC3 requires a one-time financial commitment of $10,000, and that cost is the same for all participating communities regardless of community size or location. Parade of Hearts estimates that the tourism return on investment for that financial commitment is upwards of $75,000. Yet the Parade of Hearts is offering access at $10,000 per municipality. So that's covering the development of the app, the coordination and support of the task force. We've had quite a few questions about this price point, and I will just say this was the lowest possible entry cost that the Parade of Hearts felt like they could offer while bearing the full financial risk to make sure they launch the application and do all that work to convene and support the task force. I don't know how you all feel about that number, but we're cognizant of the fact that that financial commitment may be harder for some communities than others. So we encourage cities and counties to really consider how they can be creative about meeting that cost, including partnering with businesses or other civic organizations in your community to cover that cost if needed.
Lauren, if I could ask a question?
Sure.
So how many municipalities were offered the opportunity to be a part of the process here?
So Parade of Hearts is 6 counties. So, gosh, that's the usual suspects. I got a list here somewhere. So Cass, Clay, Jackson, and Platte in Missouri, and then Douglas, Johnson, and Wyandotte in Kansas. So it would be open to any of those counties and any of the municipalities within those counties.
Is there a minimum number that have to participate in order for us to be able to advance, or is this covered later in your presentation?
That's a great, we have not talked about a minimum number to participate. I think based on the response that we're getting and the verbal commitments we received so far, I think we're very comfortable that we are going to have enough participants to make it make sense. So far, we've had, I think as of today, like 8 verbal commitments. I'm not at liberty to talk specifically about those because we haven't had official written commitments, and those are still going through their processes within those jurisdictions. But we think we're going to have enough support to make it a go.
Well, and with that, are you going to have enough information to make it worthwhile for people to actually go to the site to pull the information down? I was wondering what the best point there is for Parade of Hearts in order to be able to engage appropriately and do what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the draw is really the parade itself. People will come to the app and utilize it because they're trying to learn about and access the hearts. And it's got that, the app has that, I guess like a gamification component where people can keep track of the hearts they've seen and track the ones they want to go see next. So that's really the key draw. So any of the communities that opt in are going to get exposure because of the people that are interested in the parade and accessing the app that way.
Okay. Oh, yes, Mr. Barber.
Yeah, obviously, this app would be beneficial while the hearts are up, but the hearts don't stay up forever. What happens when they come down with the app? What's the plan for it after that?
I'm going to talk about that a little bit.
Oh,
Will you
good.
hold your
Okay,
question?
thank you.
Okay, great. One thing before we move off of the financial commitment, I just want to be really clear that this opportunity is only related to participation in the TC3. Participation in TC3 has no impact on any of the decisions around the artist selection or the art placement decisions that will be made later in the process.
Basically, what it's doing is if we were to participate at the 10,000 level, it would give us an administrative right to put in all of our activities, sites of interest and things of that nature for people who would access. And when will that go online live, do you think?
April of 2026.
April of 26,
Yep.
okay. Right.
Yep, precisely. The city is acting as the gateway to buy that access for businesses and attractions and tourism assets that you want to promote in your community.
Okay.
I know this slide is hard to see, and there are some other supporting materials in your packet that I'm not going to dwell on. I just wanted to share those with you for awareness mostly that the Parade of Arts is currently offering patron opportunities for 2026, and some of those patron levels do include opportunities to own the art sculptures or have more influence on location of art sculptures. So if the city or businesses in your community or other partners in Raymore are interested in learning more about those opportunities, I will happily pass that along to Parade of Hearts for a follow-up, but I just want to be very clear that this $10,000 commitment is only for the TC3, for the task force, and the promotional opportunity through the app. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about timeline and then the future since we have the question. So we are asking cities and counties to opt in with their acknowledgement to do so by April 30th of this year. That acknowledgement commits each participant to make that one-time $10,000 financial commitment by the end of the calendar year. So we just need to know by April if you're interested. The dollars can come later. The TC3 task force will get organized in May once we have those commitments at the end of April. And we will meet through the conclusion of the parade into September of 2026. Now let's talk a little bit about legacy and what happens next fall. So there is a lot of regional attention right now on the summer of 2026, which undoubtedly will be a critical moment in the history of our region. But the Parade of Hearts and the digital platform is going to be available for a longer window than that, okay, April through September of next year. And it is absolutely our goal and our intent that if we get this right, there is potential for ongoing utilization of the map for tourism promotions beyond 2026. So I don't have a specific answer to your question right now about what the future holds, but that will be part of the work of the task force, is really figuring out how to take this opportunity and make a legacy impact that is lasting beyond this landmark year that we are expecting for the region in 2026. All right. That is everything that I wanted to share with you. I'm eager to hear your questions, and
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
The application, is that going to be strictly in English, or will somebody be able to download that if they're from Denmark, if they're from Greece or someplace like that? There are going to be a lot of people here and looking around, it's like, what is this?
Yep.
And they're going to get their picture taken with it, and they're going to send it home, and it's like, no speak English.
the short answer is that today, I don't know, but we are looking into that. Jen has been talking with the development team to try to figure out if that's possible, what it would cost, and I think that will be part of discussion with the task force as well. Something that we're really cognizant of is that the way this app will work, it's connecting people back to local information. So it will be connecting to websites and flyers and social media accounts that may not be translated into other languages. So we just want to be careful about managing expectations. If we say it's a multilingual resource and then most of the information is buried other places that we don't control, and those aren't multilingual. So we're working on it, but
One
I don't
step
know
at a
right
time.
now. Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, so the KC 2026, what is their, are they being provided information as to what POH is doing? Are we coordinating with them?
There is no official coordination. We are absolutely have had conversations with them. They are aware that this is happening. We will be good friends and partners and share information throughout, but this is a totally independent opportunity.
That's what I was
KC
wondering, if there was some
2026.
collaboration though, so that they weren't pushing back, but they're kind of partnering with us in order, if somebody were to ask somebody from 2026 about the art, would they direct them to our site?
I don't speak for KC 2026, but I hope
I hope so.
Yeah, we've definitely had those kinds of conversations, and the KC 2026 isn't the only entity that we'll want to coordinate and share information with. I mentioned Mark, the Regional Homeland Security Coordinating Council will have a huge role to play in safety and security coordination on a regional level. That's not our lane, but there might be information that comes out of this work that we would share and coordinate with others who are doing transportation and safety and other aspects of regional coordination in 2026. So that's definitely the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish, communication, coordination.
Okay. Well, I know that that Mr. Fearborn and his staff are in the middle of ongoing preparation of the next budget for 2025-26. And so I wanted to get this information to the group today to see how they felt about Raymore participating with POH, and if we could make that quasi-commitment amongst this group. I want them to think about it, but I wanted to hear a little more, have them provided a lot more detail about this than what I could provide, to be honest with you. So thank you for being here, and I would absolutely open it up for any other questions. Mr. Circo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was reading here, as you said before, about the independent committee, where the locations would be. So if the TC3, the 10,000, but that doesn't guarantee we to get a heart in Raymore or not?
That's correct.
That's
There's no
correct.
guarantee of
No
that.
guarantee
There's
of
a
where they'll
separate
be
process
placed.
for that.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mills?
is it possible for, let's say, Cass County to participate, but Cass County promote Raymore and Belton and the other cities to where everybody could come together to share that $10,000?
So the rules are, if a county chooses to participate, they are limited to promoting their county-owned assets and facilities or events. Some counties are more involved in that than others, and promoting their unincorporated areas. So if the
Okay.
county opts to participate and Raymore does not, you would not see on the app any businesses or parks that are City of Raymore assets.
Right. And we do have the county representatives here. Forgot to introduce it. We have Bob Houston and Jeff Fletcher that represent our area. They're here with us this evening. And, I wanted them to hear the presentation, this one and the next one as well. So thank you for that. Anybody else have anything?
Sir,
Yes, Mr. Fearborn.
Lauren, you had indicated that participation does give us a seat at the table.
Right.
If we saw this as an opportunity, we've been having a lot of discussions about the unique partnership that we have with our Chamber of Commerce. If we saw this as an opportunity to have our Chamber of Commerce have a voice, do you think that the seat could be a shared seat with a city representative and somebody from the chamber?
Absolutely. How you all want to handle that is up to you. You get one
Thank you.
seat. If you want to assign it to a partner agency, we are absolutely open-minded about doing that. For the sake of convenience and coordination, we are treating the municipalities as the conduit.
Sure.
But how you all want to coordinate internally with your civic community, that's up to you, and you can
Thank you.
delegate that seat.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Lauren.
We'd love to have you participate, and if you have any more questions, the mayor knows how to find us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you. All right, and as I said, I forgot to mention, they were in the room with us tonight. Mr. Houston, Mr. Fletcher, thank you for being here this evening. We also have Missy Wilson. She's the Assistant City Manager at Raytown, but she's here attached to my wife because they're both working on what's going on in Raytown. So thank you all for being here. And now, Diana Bryant. Diana Bryant is the Director of the Solid Waste Management District for the Mid-America Regional Council. Immediately upon getting that position, she hit the ground running. That was at the end of our landfill fight, or near the end of our landfill fight. And she was a great partner at the end there, helping us negotiate through different means and understanding the process a little better than what we had understood at the regional level. And with that, she was also tasked with putting together a planning, an executive roundtable that we ended up putting together, and have had some great meetings with leaders of areas from around the Kansas City metropolitan area. Some of those leaders have great programs going on within their jurisdictions, and we've been looking at best practices as well as some research that Diana's been doing outside the area. And that's the focus of our presentation here this evening, as we've come to a point in our roundtable discussions is that it has developed economic development opportunities for waste management. And I have asked her to be here with us this evening. Dr. Bryant is, as said, very astute in these environmental issues and has a great communication skill with the members who were all part of that landfill talk through the process of the last couple of years, and has, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Diana now, and I'll let you introduce yourself if you like. I didn't have a bio, sorry about that, but.
And I am new to this job. I started in November of '23. So, just came in when things were really getting hot for you guys. And I know that was a tense time.
Speak in the
And,
mic, please.
Oh, thank you. So when the landfill capacity study that we commissioned came out, that was really the first time that I had an opportunity to do any kind of public engagement, and even then, they kind of kept me under wraps. So this is actually the first time I've ever presented for a city council about any of the solid waste work. So they finally trust me to let me out on my own. It's like I don't have a supervisor here. So, and so one of the things that they asked me to do is to work on a regional plan. The solid waste district, as you may know, is something that was created in the state of Missouri. There's 20 districts, and the one district that is in the Kansas City region is 5 counties. So it is Cass, Jackson, Clay, Platte, and Ray County. And so we don't have, I mean, the solid waste district doesn't have any responsibilities in Kansas, but because we're part of MARC, and MARC does by state, then we are working with our partners in Kansas to try to create a plan that will meet all of our needs and represent what our interests are. Because as we know, solid waste does not just stay where it's generated, right? And a lot of it travels across the state line because Kansas does have a lot of the landfill space, and especially because, you know, much of the region is close to the state line. It's as close to go there as to Sedalia or Warrensburg or someplace else. And so you can see that, like, our responsibilities and how we see our job is really to provide some leadership to the region to help think about how we can transition our solid waste management from what is just kind of like buy it, use it, throw it away, to some more robust circular kind of resource management system. And you play an important role in that. So we work with local government to try to see how we can all make that happen, because we do not have the authority. I mean, the solid waste district does not get to do anything other than give out about $500,000 a year in grants and manage the responsibilities for the 5 counties. Because statutorily, every county and every city is responsible for managing solid waste. So that is a local responsibility, but we do that kind of high-level coordination and planning and try to help support infrastructure that's necessary to do that well. And so this is, you can see that, you know, our vision and our mission then is really about coordinating between public, private, nonprofit organizations and residents to try to see how we can best divert materials from landfills and keep them in use longer. So both through reduction, but also reuse and recycling are very important aspects to us. So I have a couple of staff members. Nadja Carpolo helps run the grant program. Matt Riggs does a lot of outreach. So he's Eco Elvis, if you've ever seen him perform. He does a lot of public outreach in costume and also works with our food waste reduction plan. And then we have support at MARC from Public Affairs to help us with a lot of our publications. Most recently, as Mayor Turnbow mentioned here, we have commissioned a study with a firm out of the Netherlands that is very good at doing these very high-level waste flow analysis, where we provided them with data, as did our partners in Kansas and Kansas City, Missouri, to try to get our arms around, like, what is it that we're throwing away? Where is it kind of coming from, at least in terms of these broad categories of residential, commercial, and institutional, industrial, and then some special wastes. And then certainly there's some that we just couldn't even decide, we couldn't determine the origin, and so there's this interesting unknown category in there. But of those sources, then they all have a mixture of waste that they produce, and those go to different destinations. And certainly we'd like to see more of it not going to the landfill, but you can see from this analysis in the 5 counties that is the MARC Solid Waste District, it almost all goes to the landfill. We do a fair job of getting materials out through recycling efforts, and we do some, pretty robust work with organics and composting, and then there's a small amount that goes to waste energy. But certainly we need to flip this around significantly if we are not going to fill the landfills that we're using now on the timeline that the capacity study said that we would, right? Which is, 20 to 40 years, and that 40 years requires a lot more robust diversion than we're currently doing. And so that's kind of the challenge before us, is to think of what it is that we want and need to make that happen. What are the technologies, the tools, the businesses that can do this? And the metabolic study, what was so interesting about it was not just this flow, but they put a monetary value on this. And they gave us this little model to think about in terms of the value of these resources, is that, you know, through the manufacturing, assembly, and all this, we get to kind of the top of the hill there, where we're using that material. And if we can keep it in use longer through reuse, the closer we are to the top of the hill, the more of that value we're retaining. And once it gets all the way to the bottom of the hill, right, we're just into landfilling it, and we've lost all the value. So thinking about the priorities being closer to the top is also how we're kind of prioritizing our grant funding and other activities that we manage to try to encourage and support more of that reduce, reuse, and then certainly through recycling. But the kind of interesting part in here is the capacity to be able to collect, sort, process materials for remanufacturing. And now that there is such a robust effort at onshoring manufacturing, there's a huge economic opportunity that we have in the metro to host a lot of this manufacturing activity, so that materials that we want and need can be made here, and we're not as reliant on global sources of these materials. And certainly you realize that many of these raw materials and these things that we use come from somewhere else. And so we are both reliant on the products themselves being made someplace, but also the materials that go into those products. So in their analysis, what they found was there's a great opportunity, something like $250 million of value is what is going to landfills right now. So these materials, they estimated at that value, $250 million a year, that could be reused in some other way. And that through that, then there would be a lot of jobs created. And so you can see this chart here. They didn't even estimate what was possible at the top end of this. Through reuse, redesign, and reduction, there's a kind of a difficult, complex ecosystem that provides a lot of the reuse that we have going on, both through thrift stores, charities, waste exchanges, Facebook Marketplace, right? There's so many ways that there is commerce going on of people that are sharing, selling, upcycling, exchanging, donating goods that keep them out of the landfill. And lots of jobs and volunteer opportunities, as well as fundraising for nonprofits, comes through that sector. But even in the repair, I don't know the last time you had anything repaired, but it's not as easy as it used to be, right? To find a shoe repairman or an electronics repairman or a lamp repaired or anything that you might really want to continue to use. Car repair is about the only thing that's universally available, right? We can get our cars fixed, but a lot of other household goods are much more difficult. And we do not have a robust repair economy available to do that. And then recycling, doing more of that, as well as the sorting and collection of a lot of other materials, maybe that we're not currently capturing, as well as manufacturing from that. And then you can see the bottom end of composting and landfilling or incineration is where the least jobs really exist. So the higher we are on that value hill, the more value and economic opportunity there is. So we can, before I start talking about what you guys do you have questions about that you want to ask me about the metabolic study and what we learned from that, or what we think we're going to do with it?
So let me add that initially, Diana, we talked about how our efforts in the roundtable discussions would get us to some best practices that we've seen from other cities who've done a little bit better job of handling their solid waste and sorting it and potentially getting into those things you just talked about. But the other thing was, how do we coax manufacturing operations that actually exist because of solid waste? How do we get to a point where if we have a municipal recycling facility that takes everything in and then sorts through it, and that creates jobs, but then how do we get those materials back economically to an organization that uses those materials in a positive way for either reuse, remanufacturing, or you touched on the subject a little bit, energy, waste to energy a little bit. And so could you expand on those areas that we've talked about?
Yeah, well, I mean, the waste to energy thing is pretty interesting. There's a lot of new technologies out there. There's a lot of ways that this gets done. Only a few examples are really transforming the broad amount of materials that come through the solid waste. And I mean, I probably should have gone back a couple of slides and pointed out to you that if you look at this, that the top part on the left there is what comes from residents. The rest of it comes from somewhere else. So when we're thinking about where we can have the most impact on diverting materials, residents are one piece of the pie, but they are not the biggest piece of the pie. And, you know, I don't know if you feel this way, but what I see coming into this job, and I did not do solid waste before this, so this is a new realm for me to work in. So I kind of have fresh eyes, and I'm surprised that there is this narrow focus on residents as being the solution to the problem, when they don't contribute the majority of the waste. But it's still important. Each thing adds up. So it's important that we each individually do what we can, but there's a lot that can be accomplished by schools, hospitals, institutions that operate on our behalf, the commercial sector, the industrial sector, the Little Blue Valley Sewer District. You know, a lot of these other quasi-governmental entities are also responsible for managing waste streams that often come from our activities. So there's a lot of other entities out there that should also be looking towards that. And I'm not sure that we've engaged them adequately in considering how they can contribute to this in a meaningful way. But when we think about how we can produce energy from it, what seems to be the most promising, and we're going to talk about this on May 19th at the next executive roundtable, is organics. There are a number of different energy producing processes that food waste and other organic waste can be processed, biochar, anaerobic digestion, and these things are actually in effect, are in use in the region. I mean, the sewage treatment facilities in Johnson County, 2 or 3 of those have anaerobic digestion, and that produces methane gas, and that is pretty easily introduced into the natural gas stream and the renewable natural gas. So, I mean, there are pretty direct ways of utilizing some of what are the environmental bad parts that come out of our waste stream to produce energy. But there are some others that do plastics, that do, some are more intended to produce basic elemental carbon, graphene, from taking waste and processing it. But you can imagine that the price tag for these are kind of inversely proportionate to how big of a bite they would take out of the waste stream. Is that these mega waste to energy processes are, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars. But we're, again, throwing away $250 million a year. So capitalizing these and figuring out how to finance them at the waste to energy is a lot more difficult. But if we work our way uphill from waste to energy to something more like repair capacity should be everywhere. It is not about a centrally located one-size-fits-all. that is something that, why we don't have more ability and more locations where materials could be repaired and kept into use, why, just like the reuse. I mean, I would imagine that you have access to lots of different ways to donate goods or to get goods used. Flourish, which is in Grandview, saves a lot of furniture from going to landfills. And so there are entities out there that are in proximity to you that do some of these things. But again, the solutions that people need to be close to where they are. And I think in some efforts, those solutions have been located in the center of the population, where there's more people that have access, but not necessarily everybody has access. So that's, one of the goals would be to make these alternative means of diverting materials more readily acceptable to people all over the district, and not just haul it to the center of Kansas City to donate it or to do something with it. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you were touching on it
Okay.
from several different angles. Mr. Fearborn had a question.
Doctor, at the staff level, when we were talking about the graph that you had before here, where it's coming from, it clearly noted the same thing that you just pointed out, that commercial is obviously the biggest generator. I recognize Mark is government-centric, but has there been any thought about this type of a presentation to those generators on the commercial level to find out what they could contribute? Because with all of this clearly going to landfills, the majority of it, it is disproportionate, the impact that it has on residents, as is obvious from what we've just been through, compared to commercial areas when a landfill's going in. So has there been any thought to approaching the commercial folks?
I mean, we are definitely in this planning process and through the implementation of the plan, going to target those sources as well. I mean, the Chiefs have a biodigester. All of the food waste from the Chiefs Stadium gets composted. So they don't throw it. They recycle everything possibly. They sift through every bag of trash at Arrowhead Stadium and sort all the plastic out, the glass, the aluminum, and recycle all this. I mean, it is an amazing operation. If every arena did what they did, it would be amazing. And so we're seeing movement in, like, Green Sports Alliance is a group that is, and that's the reason the current stadium is such a zero waste facility, as they designed it that way. There's a business that located in Independence to wash the cups from the current stadium. So all of their cups are reused. So these are things that, like, arenas that can have a big footprint for some of these materials are moving along within their sector. But not every sector has some robust group leading them forward to think of how they can do this better. We have a food waste initiative, and we are this year getting into working with restaurants and chefs and getting more focused on the restaurant industry and their waste diversion activities. So we're doing some of that work on the food waste side of it, but then bringing in recycling and other things that they can do too. Haven't touched hospitals. Schools get small grants from us and do some programs. But there's a lot of other institutions that are major waste generators. And then when we think about, retail, again, not much has been done to talk to retail about what they're actually throwing away and how that could be recovered and or recycled. E-waste gets a lot of attention in some of these sectors because it has more value and people understand that they're old laptops and computers, that there's something that can be done with them. But even then, I talked to a Ham landfill operator the other day, and he said, we see way too many laptops and computers in the landfill. So, there are things that are just going there, even though there are some obvious ways that they could be diverted, and that isn't happening. So who knows if that's like households who feel like it is too much of an inconvenience to wait for an e-waste event or to take it to the appropriate place because it's in the heart of the city and not in their neighborhood where they can easily access it. You know, there are opportunities, and we are definitely planning on, as the plan goes through, to target these specifically with guidebooks that would give them some things that they could easily do, just as we will with local government, right? So thinking about what local government could do, but much of this is beyond your control, right? It's not your, except that I will say that when we look at other parts of the country and what our practices in other places, a lot of it is driven by regulation. It's driven by ordinances. Municipalities have ordinances about demolition. They have ordinances about food waste. They have ordinance about a number of things that constrain some of these private companies into their actions. But I'm not sure that, you know, in a home rule state, and not in a highly regulating environment, that's necessarily the best approach. I mean, that will probably show up in the plan as like, here's one avenue, is that we could use regulations and ordinances to force entities into doing this, but I'm more of a carrot than stick person, and I would prefer to look at the economic value and the opportunities here and to use that as a motivation rather than just regulating it into existence, right? But it is something that there's an opportunity for every community to participate in. In some ways, that may be, you know, industrial parks and locating manufacturing or processing that could be done. In some cases, it might be more of empowering more collection than on the manufacturing side of it. And when we've engaged with economic development people, one of the things that they pointed out is there's not that much industrial space. I mean, there's not that much industrial park space to really do some of this. And there's probably good locations and bad locations for heavy industry, right? And the city of Sugar Creek is close to the end of the remediation of the old Amoco refinery site. The Blue River development site has a couple of other kind of brown fields. So there are some places in the metro for heavy industry that might be more dirty industry in some cases to locate. But there's a lot of other activities that could be well-suited to be distributed more evenly around the region to do a lot of this work. So I did cue some things up for you in terms of like what the city of Raymore is doing to reduce landfill use, and that you do contract hauling, and that hauler reports to you their data, so you have data to know what your waste generation is at the residential level. But again, you know, commercial and institutional facilities do not use that hauling contract, right? They have their own hauling. It's not measured. We really don't know what that waste stream looks like. We can easily find out what your residential trash looks like because it gets collected by your hauler, as well as curbside recycling. But that curbside recycling, again, is only available to your residential members and not to the others. And because I don't think you have a drop-off location, that's one way that multifamily housing often accesses recycling, is to take it to a drop-off location. I think the nearest one may be Red Bridge, or that Bridging the Gap operates. I saw your Trex Challenge. That's awesome. So Trex is an amazing operation because here you have a business that is taking waste and turning it into a product that is high value, long lasting, and takes these things that were just waste before, don't even go into the bin, right? Because these bags are not things that get collected through our normal recycling methods, right? And so that is, the city of Olathe did that. There's a number of other places that are collecting those bags, and they're actively trying to get as many of them as they can because they have a new facility opening in Little Rock, Arkansas, to manufacture their decking. And so that decking is available in stores all over the place, and we can purchase something that we know comes from a recovered material. So that's a question I often ask people is, when's the last time you bought something that you know came from some recovered material, recycled material? Most people can't name anything that they know for sure. Paper, right? Like even with government procurement requirements about post-consumer content, paper is really the only thing that we can put our fingers on, right? Oh, yeah. So more and more scrap metal is getting put into cars and made. Then I was just reading something about aluminum. And so, yes, we have a pretty robust metal industry. And because, one, I think Armco Steel in its existence made us the hub for scrap metal. In perfecting a process where they could produce steel from 100% scrap, which is something that they developed. So we do have a legacy in the Kansas City area for that type of material reuse, as does Ripple Glass, because Ripple Glass is unique. There are not a lot of parts of the country that have glass collection and have a manufacturer that makes something out of it. And so that is, the big winner that we have, and the Solid Waste District supported their creation, and we continue to support them in certain ways, as we did with Habitat Restores. So that initiative was something that the district supported, the creation of those. So, we have some good things that are happening. Most people know nothing about them, and most people don't know how they could contribute through their buying to buy goods that would drive manufacturing of these materials. So those are little things that are going to be part of the plan to try to provide information to people about where things get made, where do these materials go to? Because that's an unending question, right? Is all of the effort that you put into putting stuff in the bin, does that actually become anything anywhere? And I truly want to answer that question and be able to identify these places. But there is one in St. Joe. There's a facility that buys plastic from the recycle market, chips it up, and then sells it back to manufacturers that make things from plastic. And that is their whole job, is they are a processor of plastics for manufacturing as a material, right? The city of Raymore participates in the Hazardous Household Waste Program, which is a very important program to keep the nastiest things out of the landfill and out of our water systems, because unfortunately, in the past, people would pour things down the drain, or they would get into stormwater system or other ways. And then you sponsor e-waste collection events. And so all of those things contribute to that little narrow slice of stuff that doesn't go to the landfill. So then, the thing to think about throughout this whole process is what more can be done? I mean, what do you not have access to? What can you see could make diversion even more robust than it is now? And these are some things that exist in other places. I mean, higher participation in your recycling. I think your website says 74% of your residents opt into the recycling collection. But a drop-off center would open it up to businesses and other entities that might choose to recycle but don't get it picked up at their facility. Food waste drop-off locations, food waste composting locally are other things that are being considered and are implemented in other parts of our region. A reuse exchange or a repair space. These are things that are, high on my list because they're the top of that pyramid, where we can really robustly do more with things that are reusable, that are in good condition, that people just no longer need. And this happens all the time with garage sales, but also with estate sales, with people moving and downsizing, that there's these materials that they just personally don't have a need for anymore and maybe are not plugged into what they can do with it. But a lot of this has to do with access, proximity, and transportation. And that if they don't have a truck, they're not gonna move that couch. It's a lot easier to put it out for big item pickup. And so I work with a lot of reuse entities thinking about how we can build a better system for reuse than we currently have. So those are kind of my questions for you, and I'm happy to hear your recommendations or hear your thoughts about what kinds of things we might be able to do together.
So I know that our next roundtable, there will be there will be information of potential industries out there, I'm hoping, that those communities that want to be more heavily involved in reducing solid waste can get coaxed from an economic development perspective if we have land available for industrial processing and things like that, whether it's like the companies you talked about, whether it's, the Batliners of the world that do cardboard, or the company you talked about that does plastic and manufactures raw, ground up plastic for other manufacturers to use. Those types of industries that potentially our ED department could go out to and say, hey, we're interested in that. We want to be a part of this process. And so I'm hoping that our next roundtable will give the group some suggestions. I know you and I talked about initially that whether were incentivizations for larger communities to offer with tax cuts, land acquisitions, things of that nature, to make it more amenable to a manufacturer coming here to house themselves and then get a quick start into the process. So I really am still very interested in the waste to energy.
No,
I know
probably
we
one
have,
of the less stinky things is construction and demolition debris. I mean, landfills not only take residential trash, but every housing remodeling, new housing, any of this, those dumpsters out there mostly go to landfills. There are some construction and demolition landfills, but often they're further away than the municipal solid waste landfills. And so there's a lot of materials that could be used in some constructive way that go there. I mean, there's concrete, bricks, these things that are just filling up the landfill. It's kind of silly that they're there. But what there isn't a business that is collecting, storing, sorting, and remarketing those materials in the same way that your scrap people do, right? The scrap people, it comes in, they put it into their categories, they find somebody that wants the copper, wants the aluminum, and we don't currently have anything like that for construction and demolition debris. And there is another ordinance that some communities have adopted, requires that structures over a certain age have to be deconstructed because they have dimensional lumber, they have good hardwood, they have materials that are valuable. I don't know if you've tried, I mean, I had a neighbor across the street whose house burned down. It cost more to build that house back than they could sell it for, right? All the parts are worth more than the whole. And this is true in a lot of, especially older construction, and yet we don't do anything to recover that. And so in some places, they actually have bills that require that to be done. And there's some great success stories out there. And so trying to coordinate that, both designers, architects, builders, getting them to use these materials, they want to know those materials are available, but who's really marketing that? And so there is in Lee Summit, some Summit Transfer is a facility that was built with $500,000 of the solid waste district's money, and a lot of other money, but we had seed money in it, to do C&D recovery, recycling of these materials. And so that's one place. But there's certainly a lot more room for that. And when we think about the commercial sector, a lot of times we're not thinking about construction and how much that contributes in the use of materials and throwing away materials that are reusable in some ways or could be used.
Well, I think, Diana, our biggest challenge is what can Raymore do to be a part of the solution? And I, as we continue to go through our investigative process, and you're doing a great job of finding new information out there for us to chew on a little bit, what can our little community do to make a change for our region? And I think that's what I'm interested in doing. Don't know that we have the resources to do that, but I do know that from our grassroots effort, we do have the will of the people, from what I've understood, that want to be a part of that process so that we're never threatened again by a landfill on our doorstep.
Right. And I mean, and I do think that people have great ideas. I mean, Kansas City has a pretty robust entrepreneurial startup kind of environment. I really think 30 and 40-year-olds have a lot of energy and interest in this, but often don't have the means or even necessarily know where the opportunities are. So those are some of the more esoteric things that I'm working on, is to create opportunity lists of businesses that could be created that would fill in these niches that exist that aren't filled now, to capture these materials and use these materials to do something. It's not always about a giant plant. I mean, I think the magic of this is there's lots of small business opportunities, lots of entrepreneurial opportunities that people are interested in doing that doesn't require a huge corporate company to come in and do that. And so those opportunities can be anywhere and distributed easily because they don't require necessarily the infrastructure that we think they do. Certainly composting is an enterprise that people have started on their own, done it. They need to have a place to do it, and it's better if it serves their local place than if they're hauling it all over town to do it. And right now, that's kind of what's happening. The major amount of composting that's happening in the region is hauled all the way to Liberty, South Liberty, to where Missouri Organic has a composting facility. The same with yard waste and those things. I mean, there's a few big collection points, but they're at some distance from you. And so even those materials, right, if they were processed closer to here, it's going to save miles and provide opportunities for people to do this. And these are not, like 100 people jobs, but they're a little bit and they make some difference. And they make a difference to your residents because that is more accessible to them and not something that they have to haul a long way or deal with somebody that's not even in their town. So we will be putting together some of these lists of, what are the things that you could do? More of a smorgasbord menu than you have to do this or this or this. Right. But things that communities could consider doing that don't have a huge financial impact, and that would be opportunities where members of your community could participate in that, or nonprofits could participate in that, and it could be a starting place while we're thinking about these longer term things that we really do want to onshore manufacturing, really do want to have this processing of these materials. Because right now, everything going in that recycling bin, some of it may be going to St. Joe, but most of it is going hundreds of miles away. It's leaving here, and it's not coming back. And so to the extent that we want some of those things here, like lithium for manufacturing batteries at the new Panasonic plant, we're not going to mine it here, but we could be collecting it a lot. And those batteries are not going into a recycling bin. So there are some things out there that are problematic that we do not have infrastructure to collect or do anything with them. And those need some targeted action. But the things that are fairly commonly around, surprisingly, aren't really being managed well either, like food waste or furniture that people don't want. And those are opportunities that are so immediate. We could be doing something tomorrow that we aren't doing today without a big commitment, but just letting people have opportunities. So, I mean, those are things that I will certainly bring back to you as we get closer to the end of this. Through this process, I do have a statutory requirement to have a public meeting in every county over this. And I would like to have a public meeting in Cass County in May. So I'm hoping that your county commissioners would be supportive of that. And where we do that, I'm wide open. If you think that the city of Raymore might have citizens that would be engaged and interested and want to come to a public meeting to talk about some of these things and to think about what opportunities are out there and that might have suggestions for what we could be doing better than we're doing them now, I would welcome that opportunity to have that public meeting in Raymore or any place else in the county. But I'm going to do every county from May, June, July, August, September, have county meetings. And so I would like Cass County to be the first, just because I do think you have an engaged citizenship that would be interested in maybe having this conversation. And by then, in a couple of months, with the work that the Executive Roundtable has done, kind of asking good questions and hearing some of these options, that we would be able to present some ideas as to what we are doing and what we could be doing differently than we are.
Well, Dr. Bryant, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming out this evening.
Well, I
wanted
appreciate
to-
you asking
I wanted-
me.
Well, I wanted the team here to know how much we've stayed involved in not just winning the landfill fight, but staying involved in what the next steps our community can do to
Yeah, and Mayor
protect our
Turnbow
environment.
has been a leader in this executive roundtable of keeping people engaged and asking good questions. And like you mentioned, we have, about 30 to 35 people that show up for these meetings, and some of them are in solid waste. So some of them are the people that can kind of answer the questions, and a lot of them are elected officials asking the hard questions as to, what does this mean and what could we do? And we're learning kind of the differences that communities have. And there's a lot in terms of what services, and because it is up to the local, elected officials to make some of those decisions, like contracting haulers and doing those kinds of things. So,
Well, thank
you
you.
did all that without a bio from you, right?
That's
So-
right.
Well, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
commissioners, for being here this evening. Appreciate you all being here. And I don't think we have, did you have anything you wanted to cover tonight, Mr. Fearborn?
Just one last thing, if you have not had the opportunity to see it on our Facebook posting, if you get the chance, the weather's still really nice. We've completed the bridges in Memorial Park on the Arboretum. Gorgeous walk, and beautiful structures that went in over there, so
They really are.
that's all for staff tonight.
All right. Well, thank you. Nobody has anything else this evening? We're adjourned. Thank you.